The air hung heavy with dust and unease at the county livestock auction, where the clatter of steel gates mixed with the low hum of bidders, forming a restless cadence. In a shadowed corner of the yard, a lone stallion stood in a corroded pen. His coat, once a bold, gleaming black, was now dulled, caked with dried mud, his ribs stark against his hide. His mane, tangled like discarded twine, swayed as he shifted wearily from hoof to hoof, eyes half closed, resigned to whatever lay ahead. "He's trouble," a man muttered nearby, voice sharp. "Put 3 handlers in the hospital, should have been put down already." Others nodded, casting cautious glances as they passed, steering clear of the pen. No one saw anything worth saving, except one boy. Eli, small for 15, with sun-bleached curls and a smudge of dirt across his cheek, gripped the fence slats like they might crumble without him. His wide, resolute eyes stayed fixed on the stallion. Where others saw danger, Eli saw something else, a spark of awareness beneath the battered stillness, something defiant, unbroken. From the shade of a worn pickup, his grandfather's voice cut through. "Eli, what are you doing? That horse is no good. Get over here, boy. Don't waste your time." Eli didn't turn. "He's not mean, Granddad. He's scared." "Same difference with horses," the old man snapped, worry edging his tone. "You remember last time you tried saving one of these wrecks? Don't be stupid again." But Eli wasn't listening, his gaze locked on the stallion, memorizing every flinch, every slow breath. Inside the auction barn, the auctioneer's rapid-fire chant echoed off the rafters. Calves, goats, and ponies were sold off briskly, one after another. The stallion's turn loomed, and everyone knew his fate. The kill list. No bids meant a one-way trip to the truck out back, the kind no one mentioned. Eli slipped from the fence, weaving through the crowd, his slight frame lost among broad shoulders and cowboy hats. He found his grandfather by the barn, leaning against the truck's open door, arms crossed, face etched with a permanent scowl. "I want him," Eli said quietly, eyes on the old man's chest. His grandfather's gaze tightened. "What the hell would you do with that horse?" "Try," Eli replied. "That's not a plan. It's better than giving up." A heavy silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken history. Pain flickered in the old man's eyes. Maybe memories of Eli's father, maybe old regrets. "You've been cleaning stalls and helping Doc Harrison for months," he said finally. "You've got maybe $200, 0 cents in that jar." "I'll use it," Eli said. "That won't cover feed, let alone vet bills." "I'll work more." "You already work too much." "I don't care." The old man stared, jaw clenched, then stepped aside without a word. Eli darted back inside as the auctioneer called the next lot. The stallion was led in, flanked by 2 handlers in thick gloves, their faces taut. The horse tugged against the rope, eyes flashing, muscles coiled, not rearing, not bucking, but radiating warning. "No papers, no name, wild," the auctioneer barked. "Last chance before the truck. Start at $50, 0 cents. Silence. "Do I hear $50? 0 cents. No one stirred. Eli stepped forward. $50, 0 cents. The auctioneer paused, surprised. "We got $50, 0 cents. Do I hear $60, 0 cents? More silence. Heads turned, murmurs rippling. Going once, going twice. The handlers exchanged looks, eyeing Eli like he'd lost his mind. "Sold for $50, 0 cents. No cheers followed, just skeptical mutters and sideways glances. A handler shoved the rope into Eli's hands like it was cursed. "You're crazy, kid," he said. Eli didn't respond, gripping the lead, steadying his breath as the stallion snorted and pawed the dirt, towering over him, uncertain and tense. "I'm not gonna hurt you," Eli whispered. The horse didn't soften, but didn't bolt either. Outside, his grandfather watched from the shadows, arms still crossed, saying nothing, as Eli led the stallion to their trailer, step by careful step. It took an hour to load him. No shouting, no whips, just patience. Eli stayed close, hand on the rope, murmuring soft words, promises he wasn't sure he could keep. "You're safe now. It's okay." When the trailer gate finally closed, the old man approached. "Got a name for him yet?" he asked gruffly. Eli glanced at the horse, now a shadowed shape inside, quiet but uneasy. "Not yet," he said. "He'll tell me when he's ready." His grandfather grunted, a flicker of respect or maybe fear in his eyes. "Just remember," he said, "some things can't be fixed no matter how hard you try." Eli met his gaze, steady. "Maybe, but some things can." They drove home in silence, the hum of tires on gravel drowning out the doubts trying to creep in. Eli stared out the window, the old man's words looping in his mind. He wasn't sure what he'd done, only that when he looked into the stallion's eyes, he didn't see a beast. He saw himself, alone, scared, misunderstood, but still standing. The old barn groaned with age and memory as the sun sank below the hills, dust dancing in golden beams through cracked siding. Inside, the stallion stood stiff in a corner of his new stall, ears twitching at every creak, nostrils flaring. Eli leaned against the far wall, arms folded, silent. 3 days had passed since the auction, 3 days of slow movements, quiet words, and careful distance. The horse wouldn't let him near, eating only when Eli left, kicking the walls at night, sleepless. Eli had named him Ghost, not just for the faint gray streaks in his black coat, but for how he moved, half here, half gone, untouchable. "You sure about this?" the vet had asked the day before, peering over her glasses as Ghost paced. "He's not just scared. That's trauma, maybe rage." Eli had nodded. "I'm not giving up." She didn't argue, just left antibiotics and warnings. Now, Eli slid down the wall, sitting cross-legged on the dirt. He didn't reach for the rope or speak loudly, just watched Ghost from the corner of his eye. The horse glanced over once, then turned away, muscles twitching. "I don't know what happened to you," Eli said softly, "but I bet it was rough." The barn stayed quiet, the wind rustling outside. "I had this dog, Daisy," Eli continued. "She'd been hurt before we got her. Took months before she'd eat from our hands. Ghost's trust." Ghost's ears flicked, his tail giving a single, sharp swish. "Back then, I didn't know how to help her. I was just a kid, stumbling through. But I learned. She didn't need noise or force. She needed space, time." Eli reached into his pocket, pulling out a frayed piece of rope, Daisy's old toy. He set it down beside him, an offering. "I won't push you," he said softly. "I swear." He sat there another hour. Ghost didn't come near, but she didn't turn away either. Not trust, not yet, but not rejection. That night, Eli barely slept. Every creak of the barn, every hoof against wood yanked him awake. By dawn he was up, boots on, exhaustion heavy in his bones. His grandfather waited on the porch, holding 2 mugs of coffee. He handed one over silently. "She's still restless," the old man said. "Not yet," Eli replied. "Think she'll ever settle?" Eli sipped his coffee, watching the sunrise spill across the pasture. "Don't know, but I'm not quitting." His grandfather grunted. "More patience than your dad ever had." It was the first time he'd mentioned Eli's father in months. "Had it tried too," Eli said. "Maybe. Not like this." He thought he could force things. Eli stayed quiet. They both knew how that ended. In the barn, Ghost stood tense but alert in her stall. She didn't bolt when Eli entered, not like before. He sat, placing an apple between them, not offering it, just waiting. Minutes dragged. 20, then 40. Ghost took a slow step forward, then another. She sniffed the apple, eyes locked on Eli, and took a bite. First contact. Days crept by, each a small victory. Ghost let Eli into her stall without flinching. She tolerated a brush sweeping dirt from her coat. One morning she let him touch her shoulder for a full breath before stepping back. Eli jotted each moment in a notebook, not for anyone else, just proof they were moving forward. The real test came when Eli clipped on the lead rope. He didn't pull her from the stall, just let the rope hang. Ghost's ears pinned slightly, her eyes narrowed, but she didn't fight. Eli waited, then stepped aside. She followed, step by step, until they reached the barn's open door. The pasture lay beyond, dew-soaked and gleaming. Eli stopped. "You stop too," he whispered. "No need to go far." Ghost hesitated at the threshold, then shifted forward, stepping into the light. Her mane caught the breeze. She sniffed the air, exhaling sharply. Eli let the rope slacken. "You did good," he said, voice low with awe. That night, Eli found his grandfather mending a gate. "She stepped outside," Eli said. The old man hammered a nail. "She bolt?" "No, just looked around. Didn't even flinch." "Well, I'll be damned." Eli smiled. "She's starting to trust me." His grandfather wiped sweat from his brow. "Trust's a loan, boy, not a gift. Interest's steep." "I know," Eli said. "I'm paying it daily." The old man nodded and returned to his work. That evening, Eli lingered in the barn, reading aloud from a school book, filling the quiet. Ghost didn't lie down, but she stood close, ears tilted toward his voice. By the time Eli left, she watched him, not with fear, but something softer. Recognition, maybe. Halfway to the door, a low nicker stopped him. He looked back. Ghost had taken a single step forward. Eli smiled. Progress. Morning sun poured over the pasture, golden and thick, shadows dancing in the breeze. Eli stood by the fence, watching Ghost move in wide, cautious circles. She no longer hugged the field's edges like a trapped thing. 3 weeks since the auction, Eli's arms carried faint scars, bruises, scrapes, the weight of patience. Mornings began the same, a slow approach, a pause, then Ghost accepting the halter without protest. Today, Eli carried a saddle. Not to ride, not yet. Trust needed to stretch. Ghost stopped circling as Eli approached, her eyes fixed on the saddle. "I know," Eli murmured, pausing 10 feet away. "You've seen this before." He set the saddle on the grass and sat, sometimes talking, sometimes silent, always watching her. Ghost eventually stepped toward the saddle, sniffed it, then jerked back, but didn't bolt. Good. By noon, Ghost allowed the saddle blanket with a twitch, but no rebellion. The saddle followed, loose, light. Eli didn't tighten it, just let it rest. Ghost stood stiff but calm. Eli backed away, heart pounding. She didn't buck. That evening, Eli found his grandfather splitting logs. "She took the saddle," Eli said. The old man paused. "On her back?" Eli nodded. "Didn't panic." His grandfather grunted. "That mare keeps surprising me." Eli shrugged. "She's just waiting for someone to not give up." The old man set the axe down. "Ever think she's doing the same for you?" Eli frowned. "What's that mean?" "You're different since you brought her home. Up earlier, no more flinching when the wind slams a door. No pacing after nightmares. Quieter but stronger. Like you're finding yourself again." Eli didn't answer. The wind stirred dust around their boots. "I never said I was broken. Never said you were. But that mare's carrying something, same as you. Not a coincidence you found each other." Eli turned it over all night. The next morning he saddled Ghost again, walking her around the paddock. No mounting, just motion. Her hooves struck with purpose. By week's end, he slipped a bridle on. She didn't like it, but accepted it. Each day, trust grew, earned, returned. The first ride was quiet, no ceremony. Eli, alone in the paddock, placed a boot in the stirrup and swung up. Ghost stood still. Eli's heart raced, hands light on the reins. They stayed like that 5 minutes before he dismounted, whispering praise. That night, his grandfather clapped his shoulder. "Proud of you," he said, "and her." It wasn't about the ride, it was about the choice, the shared courage. Days later, they walked under saddle, then trotted. Ghost's eyes softened, her steps fluid. Then came the letter, tucked in a thick envelope between catalogs and bills. Eli read it at the kitchen table, his grandfather nearby with coffee. He read it twice. "What is it?" the old man asked. "University," Eli said slowly. "They want me back. Spring semester, full credit." His grandfather raised an eyebrow. "That what you want?" Eli looked out the window. Ghost grazed near the fence, ears flicking at a hawk's call. "I don't know." "You worked hard to get there." "I did. But Ghost still needs me." The old man chuckled. "You sure it's not the other way around?" That night, Eli sat with Ghost, the letter in his pocket. He read it aloud, though she didn't understand. She stood close, eyes half closed, breathing steady. "You saved me too," Eli whispered. Ghost nudged his shoulder with her muzzle, the first time she'd reached for him. Eli closed his eyes. Healing wasn't done, but they'd stepped into the unknown together. No finish line, just the next sunrise. They'd face it side by side. Rain battered the barn roof as Eli leaned against the stall door, watching Ghost chew her hay. Thunder rumbled, distant but sharp. The storm had swept in fast, soaking Eli on their trail ride, but Ghost was dry, warm, calm. That mattered most. 2 months since the auction, Eli had been broken in ways he hadn't named. Ghost had reshaped him, not healed, but set right, like a bone finding its place. She was more than a companion, a mirror to his wounds, a quiet presence for his silence. Eli traced his fingers down her mane. Ghost lifted her head slightly, then resumed chewing. That small trust was everything. The barn door creaked. "You decent?" his grandfather called, voice dry as ever. Eli turned. "Just about." The old man stepped in, shaking rain from his cap. "Town called. Another horse dumped out by Mill Road. Second time this month." Eli frowned. Who'd do that in a storm like this? "Someone too cowardly to face their shame," his grandfather muttered. "They say it's a filly this time." Eli hesitated. "Is she hurt?" "Hard to tell. Some kids found her. Sheriff took her to the vet. They're keeping her overnight, but Doc Brinley says she'll need a home soon." Eli glanced at Ghost. The stallion's ears twitched, though his gaze stayed steady, half-lidded. "You thinkin' what I'm thinkin'?" Eli asked softly. His grandfather didn't reply. He didn't need to. By morning, the rain had cleared, leaving the world sparkling with dew and puddles. Eli drove to town, a tarp and grain bags stashed in the truck bed, just in case. At the clinic, the sharp scent of antiseptic and damp straw stirred a memory he couldn't place. Dr. Brinley met him at the door. "She's scared," he warned, "but she's got fight in her." Eli followed him to a recovery stall. Inside stood a chestnut filly, maybe a year old, ribs stark under her wet coat. Her eyes were wide, too much white showing, and an old scar marred her left hind leg, poorly healed. "Not feral," Brinley said, "but neglected, maybe abused. Someone tried breaking her too young, then dumped her when she resisted." Eli stepped closer. The filly flattened her ears, retreating to the corner, muscles tense. She's like Ghost was, Eli said. Brinley raised an eyebrow. That horse still doing well? Eli grinned. Better than well. It took work to convince the sheriff the filly wouldn't end up in trouble again. Eli gave his word, steady and sure. He named her Juniper. The first week was rough. She kicked the gate, refused hand-fed grain, and snapped 2 halters trying to bolt. But she never bit. When Ghost was led near her stall, something in her eased, just enough to show she hadn't given up on trust entirely. Ghost stayed calm, unfazed by her nighttime whinnies. He paced the fence when she was first turned out, watching her race frantic laps until she tired, then stood by the water trough, patient. Ghost taught her to stand still for Eli's approach. Ghost showed her not every hand brought pain. A month passed, then 2. Juniper's coat turned glossy. The scar on her leg stayed, but she stopped limping. She followed Eli now, wary but willing, coming when he whistled. One morning, Eli found her beside Ghost under the oak by the western fence. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting golden patches on their coats. Both horses stood still, heads low, shadows blending. The sight burned into Eli's mind. He snapped a photo on his old flip phone and sent it to no one. That evening, as the sky glowed copper, his grandfather handed him a folded note. "Call came today. From the university. They heard about your work with Ghost." Eli raised an eyebrow. "What do they want?" "They're starting an animal therapy program. Want you to share your story." Eli blinked. "Share? Like, talk to people?" The old man chuckled. "No big stage, just your truth." Eli looked out the window. Ghost and Juniper trotted across the pasture, strong and alive. "You think I should?" "I think you've got something worth saying." That night, Eli sat by the fence, boots in the grass, Juniper's soft breath warm against his sleeve. Ghost stood nearby, a quiet guardian in the dark. Eli unfolded the letter, read it by moonlight, then tucked it into his pocket. He wasn't sure if he'd go, but for the first time in years, he felt he had something to give. Not because he had all the answers, but because he knew what it was to be broken and still learn to trust.